Hi, this is BZ Rieger with the Quantum Playground, and I have Kevin with me this afternoon, and he's snowy, and I'm losing snow, so that's good. Hi, Kevin.
Good evening, BZ. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm really
Awesome.
excited to play, and
Me
this
too.
all came about by you emailing and saying, "Hey, I've got a great idea for you to maybe noodle around with Lisa and Sheila and yourself." And I said, "Sure, that sounds good. And how about you and I noodle together playfully?"
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
So there we go. And you
I
had,
saw. I actually saw the recording of your. There was a couple shows on my birthday on Valentine's Day,
yes.
and you really got into um, the feel of what it's like on the situation with Heather and Randy. That, I battle with daily, and I thought it was very very well done in how we have to read into the fact that we make our choices. But those who have other experiences. But yet, we also know that we're in control of the ones that we make. But I just find it odd that some things come to manifestation so easily and so quickly and so amazingly beautiful and fast, but others don't, and that's the thing that I struggle with.
Yeah. Part of that is attachment
Mm-hmm.
and the frequency that you're holding in it. So a lot of times, just in a very simple way, when we're thinking, oh, I want this, and I want to call this to me, and yeah, this would be great. A lot of times that's really glossing over the frequency that you're actually holding, or anybody's actually holding, is I need this. I gotta hurry. It's great. I can be patient, but I need this by 10 o'clock tomorrow, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
see, and that's kind of the wild thing because I've had, I would just say, psychic phenomenon happen to me all my life. I guess I've been very receptive to it, and um, things that I call mundane, like deja vu, which was a very early on thing in my life. But then to having premonition dreams and these kind of things that have kind of followed me throughout the years. But having like immediate situations where you do manifest something. And I was telling you about my beautiful house here. We found this house about a year ago that we fell in love with here on 3 acres, and it was immediate, like we were drawn to this place. And um, circumstances being that they are, I had my second son was born with a pretty serious heart condition. So he spent the first three weeks of his life in emergency care hospital, and he's what I call my $250,000 baby,
mhm.
because that's about what it was out of pocket. And I carried that debt for years and years and years, and then it just came to the point where I just couldn't do it any longer. So not long ago, we did that wonderful thing that they want us all to do, which is file bankruptcy.
Mhm.
And so I had to get that kind of taken care of off the record, to get into this place, to get in this house. And one of the things that I filed on was a second mortgage in there. And they came back and said, no, we can't get you a loan unless you tell us, unless you show us something that this is no longer owed. And I knew I didn't have that.
Right.
But with from the place of love in my heart and saying, this piece is perfect for the family. They're going to grow up here. They're going to have the most amazing experiences here. This is going to be perfect for them. When I wake up tomorrow, I want to call my lawyer, and I want him to have that piece of paper that says I don't owe anything on that in his file. That's what I choose to experience. And the next morning, I call at 10 o'clock. And so I talked to the lady who's going to help me, and she says, well, let me go check. And she goes back and pulls the file, and she goes, well, yeah, I don't remember seeing this in there, but there's a letter in here that says you don't owe anything on that. And I thought, that's pretty fascinating. And, long story short, we got the house. But so, so that's the thing that I struggle, because I know we did not have that letter,
Right.
I find it amazing that those things can happen, and yet the largely unjust world that we live in just doesn't seem to comprehend that we choose other things sometimes.
Well, again, that's the there's it's different than, well, I could either say it's different than perception, having different perceptions on it.
Right.
It's probably, unless you say you're talking about the perceptions and they're all yours and you're looking at the multidimensional ones. So you're looking at it from at least bilocational consciousness and, or or, multiple locational consciousness. The other thing is that some things that you might label as perceived bad or perceived X, Y, or Z, that's all in the, the crunchy, I don't like this category,
Right.
are not necessarily that in the longer range outcome, if that makes sense.
Right.
So, have you ever known anybody who's, well, I was just going to say, have you ever known anybody who's had something go wrong with a financial thing or health thing, and they, they came on the other side of it and they thought it was great. It taught me so much. And then I thought, well, hey a minute, there's somebody right here who knows that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's the such interestingly unique dichotomy of this amazingly crazy existence, when you get to experience absolutely every piece of the ups and the downs and the sides, and I mean, when you really stop and think about it, it is fascinating how many things you can experience in just a very short amount of time. I mean, just from that sheer aspect. But then there's what I do, I'm diametrically opposed to, because this system is, I refer to it as the matrix. It's the matrix. This matrix, I had an interesting meeting. It's probably been about a month ago. But what I do, you wouldn't think I'd come across starseeds, but I come across starseeds all the time. People with my similar feel towards the universe and multidimensionality and these kind of things just seem to flock to me for some reason. And so I met with a group of them. It's been about a month ago now. And I gave them all gifts. It's funny. I was listening to your recording today, and you were talking about crystals. And I gave them all crystals as a gift, which they came to me many, many years ago. And that's another wild story that it always seems that at the peak moment where you're having these very large experiences in your life, these critical experiences, that certain things come across your path or weave their way into your fabric, and those crystals are very interesting weaves, because it was right at the time that my father had passed away. But so I gave these folks these wonderful crystal gifts, and they were like, wow, we're not expecting that, and
right.
And that was a nice little point. But then we immediately started talking about our experiences, and one of the things that I said, so when you realize that everything that you've ever been taught or told is a lie, that's a pretty good place to start your discernment of what we're experiencing and where we are.
Good. It's a good point.
and and then I said, and when you realize that the whole system is set up to be a prison, I had a very interesting. Yeah, she's a very open starseed. I mean, like I'd say an advanced being in my presence. Because why would you consider it a prison?
Right.
Which was a very poignant question, because I immediately knew that it's only one in perception.
Right. That's right.
So,
and you're that good. You're that good that you're believing that it's a prison. So, so this is a, it's when you're really feeling all that prisonness and all of that confinement and squishing and stress and trauma and unfairness, and I could rattle off a couple 100,000 words, and
yeah.
So all of those words, it's very, very, very effortless to say, yeah, this is real. So what I'm talking about is to take a step back from that. And when I say, well, you're that good at it, when you were describing it, as being a prison, you're that good that you helped create all that you were complicit in creating all that, and that you have forgotten and dove so deep into the construct that you had created, just like if you created maybe you like to build or you like to paint or whatever it is, and you're playing a game, maybe you're getting a bunch of people together and you're going to play some baseball or something like that. And, it's real. I mean, wow, that ball really slammed my hand in the glove.
You just mentioned all things that I like, by the way, just coincidentally.
So you do that, and you want to play that, game to the nines with your friends, or you really want to dive into whatever medium that you're using, in your art, and just time drops away, and that list of things you have to do, or I'll just use this example, the kind of worrying and kibitzing about that letter that needs to be in the file so you could have bought that place that you knew was the place for you. All of that drops away because you're diving in deep. Well, the only difference really is that those could by some circumstances be labeled as positive things. Oh, well, we're playing a game, or I'm just making, creating art. Well, yeah, but you're a kick-ass creative being, and it's the same thing.
Something came to me when you were kind of touching on that with Sheila and Lisa, and I thought, well, there's the answer right there. It's not about the 100% being able to just do it. It's about learning from the road to doing, creating it. That's the most important journey. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, wow, that's really why we experience what we experience at the times that we experience it, because that is the natural progression of what it takes for us in that moment to do it.
Right. And it's expansion for us that we set out to do, or at least in a loose way, before we even came in this embodiment. And then, those are the things that we're playing with. And those are the rows that we turn. I mean, so you've got clients, right? And here we're starting with the story of all these star seeds, and a lot of them are clients, and it's very interesting. We had this group of them. Well, so it's very coincidental, not, but
No.
one might use that term. It's definitely synchronicity that at this moment in time, in the last 6 months to a year, you're having more of this arrive for you, because
Right.
this is the moment where all of that is coming forward. And we talk a lot about, I talk a lot about how it's an inside job. Well, that has many layers to it. So it's an inside job for you to do it. You're actually in a particular industry, and we don't have to go into that. You're in a particular industry where it would be helpful to have not only starseed clients in there, but starseeds like yourself who are working within that, because it's an inside job.
Yep.
In unbinding and unwinding all of that.
I tell you, I've come across some very interesting things that I see are part of the unbinding and unwinding.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're being, our roles are expanding to learn much more about the legal aspect of things. And it really seems like to me that it's in preparation for people to be, let's just say, responsible.
Yep.
Because they're going to have their own situation legally taken care of, and that's what I'm seeing. It's amazing the folks who just flat out tell me, well, I think there's a debt jubilee coming. I'm like, really? How did that cross your mind? I mean, how did you get there? What was what was that journey like? I've been on that journey for years.
Right.
Which is, I totally went in one direction and got here, and it was with no intention to get here. My intention was to figure out how I wouldn't have to sign a patent over the U.S. government.
Right.
How can I legally avoid contracting with them?
Right.
Which then led me to, knowing that everything you've ever been taught or told is a lie, that whole deal.
Right. Well, and so you just said an interesting turn of phrase there, and you said, I didn't set out to come here. I was trying to do X, Y, and Z, but this is
Right.
where I've arrived. And on the one hand, when you say I didn't set out, the I speaking is Kevin, in the shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But the real I that is speaking is the I am of all that is Kevin.
Yeah, exactly.
And you absolutely did.
Yeah, and he knows. Okay, now so here's an interesting thing that I kind of want to noodle with you, because I've been really thinking about this a lot lately. So I've had several experiences lately where, let's just say I'll call it the Mandela effect. This is a common thing that's very popular on the interwebs right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm right in my theory that with the multidimensional aspect of us, the things that you truly are choosing to experience from a place of love, basically the universe is only, objective is to supply that to you when it's from that place of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my theory is, and I notice when I'm, I'll just say it, jumping timelines,
Mm-hmm.
when I notice that I've always had this dichotomy of, okay, is it the strict Christian religion that I believe in, or is it this giant, expansive, I am one with everything mentality that I know is probably closer to my heart than the whole religious aspect? But it's funny how I can tell that I'm shifting timelines by the things that show up, and this is crazy to say, but on my phone, because I use my phone for a lot of
Right.
research.
Right.
And I'll notice, I'm like, something will show up on a very religious note that, I hadn't looked at in months, and I know I'm not even close to being in that vein, but it'll show up. And then I'll notice, a new building I've never seen before. And, I mean, I find it fascinating when you really start tuning in. Some really incredible things happen if you're paying attention.
Yeah, and that's a combination, just from the little bit you've mentioned about, that's a combination of realities and timelines collapsing and then jumping to some others. So the kind of the way to language it depends on your perspective and how you're diving into it. But the reason when we talk about everything imploding into you, so there are quantum aspects of you that are Kevin.
Yeah.
That are on in embodiment on this planet. Right? Because it's not just one, round blue marble and all of these billions of people running around on it. They're actually it's quantum. So there are probably unlimited numbers of blue marbles with all these beings running around on it. And so let's say we'll just use the number of 6 billion. So there's 6 billion people on planet Earth. And then you have another one of those which hold another 6 billion people, which hold at least one quantum aspect of each of those beings, right? So when you're talking about, you all of a sudden you're in a place where you've never seen a building before, right? Or that there's something on your phone, what you're doing is experiencing the implosion of that other aspect, quantum aspect of you back into you. And in that integration process, the things that are expansive and of a value that you've chosen, all of you has chosen a value into the implosion, right, would be these different things. Now, you may not have encountered the full awareness or the full, I'm not even sure the right way to say it, a way to play with, maybe there's something in that, that religious verse. I think you said it was a verse, right? Or, so we sometimes something shows up and you go, wow, and it clicks right away, right? Yes. And sometimes it takes a little while, or maybe heretofore you haven't figured out what that was and you kind of forgot about it. But that's what I feel and sense and have had direct experience of what's going on when those things happen.
Yeah, I often I'm kind of like Sheila in this, because the smart ass, the wonderful Swedish sense of humor that my ancestors gave me, developed over years. Really, I chose that. That's what I chose.
Yep.
You think it would have been bigger? but then you realize that that's exactly why you needed to learn it, because of your ego.
Right.
And it's just funny, the lessons that come along with those experiences are very invaluable.
Yeah. And if you hold them other than a lesson, but rather as an experience, rather as a point of expansion, and I'm going to dive into, quote unquote, this lesson, which is playing this whole role and interacting with beings in this whole way. And, just like in a play, this is my role right now. I get, whatever, fill in the blank. There's all sorts of things. It could be fun things. It could be annoying things. It could be scary things. And the example I gave before, about just to keep it really simple, of another blue planet with all those beings, that's just one quantum aspect of you. But every time throughout your embodiment, that you've had a node point, that you've come to a big choice point, get married or not, right?
Right.
Get this property that you fell in love with or not. Those are, and so there's a whole Kevin in a fully embodied quantum reality that did not get this property.
Right. Right.
So it's either really fun and exciting and fantastical, or you have a big headache, or somewhere in between all that.
Which I was experiencing yesterday, and I kind of gave you a little piece on that. So that's one of my developing superpowers, is that I'm really able to literally hear when I'm having a download. I can discern these frequencies, and yesterday was a big multi-frequency day. I mean, there was a very broad noise coming in yesterday, which I always get excited for that, because I know something that me, myself, and I have planned is going to come around.
Right. So let's play with that for a moment. Because I just heard a couple of people say, well, what is it in the least kind of labeling way, which may be hard, but what is it? That's my request. But they were asking, what does it sound like? So can you give us a metaphoric sense of what it sounds like?
From a strict physics standpoint, it sounds like a very extremely high-pitched tinnitus.
Okay.
And when they overlay each other, like yesterday, it was just like, the old days we had the dial-up.
Yeah.
You had all those weird notes. But just imagine all that fuzziness, but with discernible layers of pitch.
Right.
I'm a musician, a longtime musician, so I have to relate it to pitch. It's a extremely high pitch, just tinnitus-like situation, and it's only when you quiet your brain to hear it.
Yep.
And it's there when you let everything else fall away. It's something that, of course, you're not able to cognize because it's a frequency that's just not, don't understand, but our body does, and our DNA
your phone
does.
Hang on, your phone got kind of crinkly there for a minute. So say when you quiet your mind, start from there. You're not able to.
Yeah. So when you quiet your mind, you can just block out everything else but those tones, and it's something that you're not able to discern like a language, but your DNA does. Everything about your body is pulling in that information, that frequency, to then extrapolate to a coming event for you.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I'm going to stop you there for a second because the questions are coming fast and furious right now. Wait a minute, Kevin. So one thing I want to highlight is, on the one hand, what you described, because I can hear a good friend asking a question, because they experience a high pitch and don't have the same yet, at least all the time, connection with it that you're just describing. So on the one hand, you describe something that could be described as really annoying and driving me cuckoo, and wow, what, maybe some people go, oh, I got to go to the doctor, or some people say, oh, this is just annoying, or what do I do? But the way you described it, and what we were talking about, off camera before yesterday, was excitement, was
Absolutely.
really, really happiness and anticipation, right? And
Mhm.
already before it's fully landed, integrating it and unpacking it, and oh my god, oh wow, look at this huge crate, I got all this magical stuff in here,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
so so I want to kind of tease this out because this is going to be really helpful for people to play with. So um did you always feel, wow, look at this magic, treasure chest that just arrived, or how did you get to that feeling, that knowing, that?
Okay. Yeah. This is probably about 3 years of experiencing to where I finally started to notice a correlation. Um, and being a musician, I lived through the '80s, and I experienced some tinnitus from a few of the concerts that I've been to. But this was totally different. This was not in my ear. This is in your head.
Right.
But and it would come um, as I noticed. Well, there was a particular thing that I would say I'd open up my heart and say, this is really what I choose to experience because I think it would be best,
Hang
in
on,
this way to in this way.
wait,
Sorry.
your phone got muffled again. So you said I'd open up my heart and I would say I choose to experience it, then go on.
Right. I would choose to experience these things and for these reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then typically, I'd say I first started noticing it happening probably I'd say about a year after I started incorporating that type of practice. Um, and I would notice it, um, and all of a sudden, I don't know if you remember the old tube TVs. When somebody would turn on a TV, you'd hear this
Yeah.
high pitched, just like all of a sudden it's in your head, and you're like, well,
Right.
somebody just turned on a TV somewhere, and that's when I first started noticing it. But then I would also start noticing that, oh wow, this just happened, and I really was specific about that yesterday. And then I would start noticing these things happening over and over and over. Um, the, the the whole Trump story with the executive order. So our family was touched by that kind of evil,
Uh-huh.
and it was my wife's family where it happened, and I physically got ill when I heard about it. I mean, I physically retched, and I think I find it amazing that some of the things that I sat down and I thought and prayed about those people who do these heinous things to other people, and what they should be brought to justice. And I find it interesting that's a big part of the narrative that's going on right now.
Right.
A very large part of the narrative, and it's also very interesting when we talk about the financial situation, that it's very much tied to that.
It's not only very much, it is inextricably linked,
Yes.
and the financial system is the power generator of why the other happens.
Well, and all we got to do is, I don't know, I don't know who it is that we call. Is our local FBI, corrupt DOJ, that we just say, hey, I'm a victim of child trafficking, and frankly, every man, woman, and child in this country is.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like you to start working on the case. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you, because another thought came in, because there's a lot of people there's a number of beings who are tuning into this energetic envelope right here, right now. I think we've already had this once, anyways. But about the noise and the ringing. So
Yeah. So
Um,
after a while, it honestly, uh, it is, it's like an alarm clock now, for me. And when I experience it, I really do get excited. I get absolutely, um, riveted, and I start paying very close attention to everything in my surroundings, you know, and just watch things unfold and
mhm.
notice some very interesting things that come into my view, and um, some new things that have come across. You know, and I, I don't intend to ever, want to do this because I know who I am, and the the big me that's out there, and like, he really lets me know. I mean, he does. I mean, he sends me. I feel that, needed certain things. That I'm to experience, and
Right.
I find it very fascinating that, I keep finding more and more information, and that maybe I have to go into court, and I don't want to go into court. I don't want to do it. I absolutely don't want to do it. But now there's so much information that's come across my face that I don't know that I can ignore it any longer. Um,
Right. And there's different ways that you can, because it's the frequency of what you're discovering and the way I would describe it is the frequency of what you're discovering and the frequency of that feeling that you want to bring it to light. And
okay,
court isn't the only venue to do that. You can do that, but that's not
right.
the only that's not the only way to hold and transmit the same frequency.
Well, that's the thing. So, that's a very great point, because, um, I've been holding, uh, what I call the other frequency, the frequency of knowing, and loving, and being, and, um, seeing things unfold as they should. And it seems like, just by holding that justice is being done behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And it's not linear justice. That's the other thing, because
right?
it's um, we're in a false construct, and so we have the illusory nature of what quote unquote justice is, but it's an illusion. It always has been.
Yeah.
So to then
Hmm.
say, okay, well, we want to unwind and unbind this. We want all of this to come to a resolution. Okay, great. Let's finish this up. And we want them to get justice, but we're reaching back to the linear, punitive justice which never existed.
Hmm.
That's not the
Exactly.
way through and out. You know what I mean?
So that, I was looking at it from this aspect, and there's a compassionate part of me that really wants to believe that. Uh, so, we haven't talked about this, but, I'm a 24-year veteran of the opera stage. So that's a whole wild story in itself, how I got there. But so, over my career, I've played the good guy and the bad guy, right?
Mhm.
And the fascinating thing is that when you have those diametrically opposed roles, your energy into those roles is a very fascinating thing,
Yes.
um, and it really, um, brings something extra to the music when your personal frequency is, you know putting that into the music. I mean, frequency is a fascinating thing, and I always said the most believable, or unbelievable but magical moment on the stage is when you're having that symbiotic, um, conversation with the audience, and it's just through the music. It's just through the frequency.
Yes.
It's the emotion that's coming from all of this. But I have a feeling that in this, construct here, those people, they've all chosen their roles, and they're playing the good guy to the hilt. They're playing the bad guy to the hilt, and to me, that's the ultimate, um, situational feel that the source absolutely wants to experience from every aspect, from every possible aspect.
Yes.
So, is it good and bad? No, it really isn't that cut and dry.
No. Yeah. Is it perceived good and bad? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can each being, can you look at something and in the moment perceive this as, wow, what I'm going through right now is really horrible. And if you're there in bilocational consciousness or more expansive, you can say, yes, as you have already on this conversation, okay, this is part of my journey. There's something here for me to look at. I'm really not all that cool with this, but okay, I can sort of see somehow this was a good idea, kind of. So,
sort of,
right,
maybe.
right. So that's where you really are starting to fully step into the bilocational consciousness, where you can then realize that you're not that experience. You are a being that is experiencing that.
Right.
And that changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, so I'll use that segue. You're a being, and you're describing how you're hearing these sounds, right?
Right.
And so, because it's part of your point of reference, you related it to the kind of range and frequency from a musician's perspective, because that's what you know,
Right.
and that makes sense. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd like you to play with for a moment, because I think there's something really cool here. When you're doing that, now this may not quite be the way you would go to describe, but are you feeling it in your body? Are you seeing, but perhaps not with your eyes, seeing something unfolding from these different downloads?
I would say it happens in dream time.
Okay.
Typically, if I notice it during the day, then I know I'm going to have what I call a wild ride at nighttime.
Right.
Because I've always been a very prolific dreamer. So, I can tell you some stories about that too at some point. Like the time I met Jesus, that was pretty interesting. But it's typically during that time, and frankly, about 2 months ago, I mean, it was kind of wild. I become conscious in my dreams quite often, and when I do, I'm thinking about, okay, look at my surroundings. What am I learning here? What is it that I'm to experience from this situation? Because from my understanding, it's not common to become conscious in your dream time, but for me, it happens quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of them, really interestingly, like one that really stands out to me that happened in the recent past, about 2 months ago. I was on a table, and there were several beings around me, and they were administering some medicine to me, and they were telling me that this should get you in the right spot to do this, 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 and this, and that'll do it. And I could see them shove something in my arm, and boom, I wake up, and I'm like, what the heck was that?
And what makes you think you were dreaming?
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that was now you're blowing my mind. Maybe that was the real me. Maybe that was that really gets you thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and that's why
it was real. It was absolutely real. It was absolutely real. Absolutely.
Well, and the dream you're in, what you describe as your daytime every day, is absolutely real too. So You know, again, that's that shifting and expansion of the perspective and the consciousness and the way that you hold it. That's why I was asking you with the noise, the downloads, that high pitched, because again, we have a linear brain. We have, the well, we're as a general rule, most people hadn't been for a long time using their organic human brain, but they're using more of the linear structured brain, right? That's kind of been whittled away. But so when they describe something, they label something, because they don't. So Sheila's done this a lot, where she described, well, I don't visualize well, and then we'd play on camera, and she'd go and she'd give this wonderful detail, and I'd laugh and say, "Okay, I can see that you
Yes,
you're really terrible at that.
You're horrible at this."
Right. And one of the things that pulled out of that, especially, well, for everybody, but for Sheila, was that she wasn't actually seeing it with her eyes, like, she might be looking at this computer or watching this video or something, right? Yet she was seeing it. So the linear brain kind of slots things in all these different ways, and to jump fully into and immerse ourselves in our quantum and multidimensional brain and capabilities, it's helpful to relax that labeling. Mm-hmm. So you said, you heard the sound, but it feels like they're...
Oh yeah, it's definitely a feeling, though. Yeah. I mean, it's more, to me, tied. It's more emotional for me. There's no doubt. But the only reason I said that's one of my superpowers is because I used to not be able to hear them.
Uh-huh.
And I would know that I was getting, what I would just call a download through, crown chakra pain and these kind of things that I think, well, it's old hat for me at this point, which is odd to say, but but when you really get down to it, then what you're interpreting from that, okay, I feel it. And it's more of a feeling than a hearing, when it really comes down to it. And I can get the emotional feel, and frankly, I'm very specific. Every night, when I go to bed, before I go to bed, I tuck the kids in the bed, and every night we pray this prayer. We pray this prayer: Lord, please end this worthless debt slavery system so we can absolutely create the world that is best for us to create.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of all the evil that's perpetuated this system that we're in. Get rid of it. It's no longer needed for us. Bring us all the wonderful experiences that we can have with joy and love and wealth and health, and abundance and compassion and all the great things in life that we choose. And that's a prayer. It's almost every night that we do that, every night. And then when that download comes, the next day, the typical emotion that I'm getting with it is joy. That's the one that I'm getting.
Right.
And it's exciting. And okay, do you remember the first time you fell in love?
What's that? You got fuzzy.
Do you remember the first time you fell in love?
Yes.
And that feeling when you see them.
Yeah.
And your heart leaps.
Because you're in that moment, you're connecting mm-hmm. with the truth of who you are. Mm-hmm. That's what that feeling is, and the two of you are allowing that to be top of the experience and present that moment.
That's an amazing conversation in itself. You think about that. Just the odds that two people knowing that we are this hugely quantum these beings, and we come together for that beauty. And I mean, that is like the most powerful thing in the multiverse. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing event, and you're absolutely alive for that piece. And mm-hmm. So I shouldn't be so selfish, but I think that's what we all should experience, right?
Yeah. Well, and you there was something you were saying a minute ago when you were talking about the prayer, and mm-hmm. bringing that forth, very powerful as you go through that. And then it came to me at that moment, I'd like to tie that back into something that you said about one of the clients that through the whole get together you had, and you mentioned about the prison planet. Mm-hmm. And she said, what would make you say that?
Yeah.
And I could be wrong, but she said that because of an expansive view, not because, what do you mean a prison planet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's right. And the moment she said that, I got the proverbial slap in the face from my higher self. Just really.
It's the same thing when I said, "What makes you think you were dreaming?"
Yeah.
The exact same.
Mm-hmm.
Exact same thing. So again, it is a matter of perspective. And you had I don't remember if I read this out, but you had a wonderful line in some of the things you sent me, which is quantum is beautiful, but definitely a challenge for the ego-laden mind. Now, I love that because a lot of people can relate and resonate with that. But it's interesting because here in the bit of conversation we've had so far, it sounds like you'd have to work hard for your ego-laden mind to come out and interfere with you.
Right. So this is a recent progression. So I have just stopped doubting and stopped giving any energy to that anymore, because I've seen too many things. I've witnessed too many things that I know are the absolute truth, and this is how it all works. Mm-hmm. So I've just stopped.
So you lost your mind.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm batshit crazy, frankly.
Okay, it's a fantastical group to be in, and it's how we'll build everything new.
But and also, there's a very liberating thing when you just know that there's nothing to fear. There's absolutely nothing to fear. Nothing. And then that's when you can really start laying a foundation for creation.
Yes.
And then, I just happen to I've been blessed with a lot of love in my life. And I think that it's important that everybody experiences love, and so that's where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. And granted, I'm an Aquarian, and this is my age and all that stuff, but I didn't choose to be here for no just out of a whim. I know that this is part of it. This is part of the journey. This is part of what I'm here to share my experience with others, and understand that we are big and expansive and wonderful creator beings, and that's the beginning of the new world. And Sheila said something about Lisa Transcendence Brown, about how she says, we're the you've been waiting for, or whatever.
Yeah, that was Sophia. She was referring to Sophia, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I keep hearing everything, on the religious side of things, that the second coming,
Mm-hmm.
well, I've always felt that we are the second coming. It's us.
You're absolutely right. That's right. Because and you mentioned before, about you were kind of holding up the two thoughts, your Christian religious training, and then your more, the universal, expansive, I'll just use the phrase love side. And it's not that it's an either or, it's that the religious
It's
side
all of the above.
right. And the religious side just has that twist in it.
Right.
That is to help with the control and all of that. But the Christ consciousness is absolutely there, and it's within all of us.
I'll share this with you because I lost my best friend to cancer, and he was absolutely my brother in music, and my brother who, he lived with me in college. He was one of the best men at my wedding. Unfortunately, lost him to testicular cancer, and I was having a very difficult period in my life with this. I was just, let's just put this way. I was at odds with God.
Mm-hmm.
Because how could any benevolent being possibly let such a heinous thing happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
And him, he had no deserving to pass. He's done nothing in his life to, experience that, and so I was at odds. This is long before I became, but it's one of the most critical things that set me on this path.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how that works. So I had it in my mind that, when I cross over, we're going to have a little talking to, and he's going to be swallowing some teeth,
Right.
Thinking that that's the way it worked,
Right.
So I have these, what I call, the conscious dreams and things. And this particular night, I go to bed. It was a really bad day for me, and my best friend came to me, and I just ran up to him, and I mean, this is real life. And I grabbed him, and he was as real as it was real. It was a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, my brother, I'm so glad to see you. And he goes, hey, man, I know you've been having a rough time, but I got to show you what I'm doing, just so you know that everything's okay. And it's like, I'll just say it. He gave me a tour of heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
He just kind of showed me around and let me know what was going on, and that his life has moved on in another dimension, but yet he's still doing a lot of the same things that we love to do, at least in an interpretive way that I saw it.
Yeah.
And at the end of that meeting, he goes, hey, I'll be around. You'll see me again soon. And I woke up and I was like, oh, God dang it. Oh, I gotta go back. Because I had missed him, so much. Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of weeks go by, and again, I'm struggling. So this particular night, okay, boom, wake up in the dream. All right, we're conscious. Here we go. And I see him off in the distance, and you could probably relate to this kind of scene, but just imagine the most picturesque, beautiful lake that you've ever seen in your life, with mountains in the background, and it's a wooded area, and there are thousands of people obviously having one hell of a party here. I mean, right. Just absolute celebration. And off in the distance, over a few people, I see him holding up a cup, and he goes, free beer. I'm like, well, that's Jensen. All right, so I'd run over there and hey, brother, it's so good to see you again. He said, hey, man, I'll be right back. And he turns and literally just disappears into the crowd. And I turn around, and I can only describe what I have to say is Jesus standing right in front of me. And he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, you can come here anytime you'd like.
Right.
You can come here. Right. If that doesn't prove,
right,
this whole thing that we are experiencing now it's not it.
Well, you go within to experience beyond what all of this is. And then
Mm-hmm.
you can bring that within once you play with it and touch it within, then you can pull it out into material form. That's what we do.
And that's exactly what he meant.
Yes.
You can come here anytime you'd like, meaning you can create this. You can create
Yes.
this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're not
That was
small.
the beginning of my spiritual journey too, right there. That happening.
There you go. And
Which
busting teeth
pretty,
is really the way to get there. But hey, sometimes you have to bust a few teeth to figure out.
yeah,
There's a new way to do it.
it was pretty significant.
Yeah.
Not oftentimes you see your dead best friend and then run across Jesus a few weeks later.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
I think that's what I love about the universe and its sense of humor, because and by the way, your laughter rings throughout the multiverse, and people just love it. But when you realize that, oh my God, that was so stupidly funny. But that's part of it. That's the greatest part of this experience, is when you get to do that.
Yes. And you can
that.
do these things. This is kind of I struggle with the language here, but you can do these things wide awake.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have
the
the quote unquote dream. So where you're going to do these different things and experiencing these different things and connecting with these people, these different things, right? That's supposedly a dream, but you can do it while you're sitting in this chair having this conversation, or so you can do it where that's your only focus when you're quote unquote wide awake. You can do it where you're doing it simultaneously as you do different things, because we're multidimensional.
Right.
So we actually are doing this all the time, all over the place, also many ways. And now our multidimensionality is showing, so that we're feeling it and we're directly experiencing it, and we're going, oh, wait, that's holy smokes, kind of a thing, so that we realize that this is happening right here, and we can pull those different things in. Right. Without losing any of the connection or the attention or the focus or the detail or the richness, just to use a few things to describe it, of either, if you're only looking at two, of either of those.
Well, that's the things I love to try and experiment with, especially with my kids. I like to teach my kids in a lot of different ways than what they're spoon fed through the brainwashing school. I like to play games with them, and one of my favorite games, especially with my boys, is a game we call dibs. So if we see a hot car coming down the road, oh, dibs, I got that one. And we do this a lot, on the way to school, just to get out of the boredom of a commute.
Uh-huh.
And this one morning, this is so amazing, when things instantly manifested. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. But so this 2019 Chevy Camaro, that deep, dark burgundy cranberry color that was the first color of my first car, that deep, beautiful cranberry, and you don't see it that often, but here comes this Camaro that's that color. I'm like, oh, dibs, look at that car. It's my favorite color. I love that color. And the kids are like, oh, awesome, Dad, that's a good one. In the next wave of traffic that comes by, about half of those cars were that color.
Right.
I mean, instantly.
Yep.
I'm like, what?
Yep.
But that's how quickly it happens.
Yes.
And if you think we're not creating here, you really got to look around, folks.
Yeah.
Just look around.
And you said one of the great ways to do that, and with my kids, we play different games, and
Yep.
and it's walking through, dancing through, floating through, driving through, flying through all the different experiences, and playing with them from a new perspective in a new expanded way, and it changes how you feel, how you sense, what you notice, what you see, how you interact. It changes everything.
And I know the most powerful and most immediate manifestations are those that are filled from your heart, from emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. They just, and it's immediate. I was I just started to laugh, and my kids, what are you laughing at? Oh, never mind. But but when you notice it, and my second son, he's the one that manifests things all the time. I told you that story about him. Wouldn't it be cool, Dad, if there was a deer back there, and this deer literally walks right out?
Right.
I mean, it hadn't finished phonating from his lips.
Right.
And this thing shows up. Like,
well,
did you see that? And I'm like, yeah, I saw that, son.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, wow, you just created that.
They've got less of the distortion.
Yeah.
So there's not as much stuff to clear up as a general rule when they're younger. It is, and it's happens in all different ways and all different things, and it's happening all the time. Even if someone says, "Well, I haven't seen that; it's not happening," it is. You're doing it all the time, but if your focus is in a neighborhood frequency, a frequential neighborhood that is not open to that is always pushing those kinds of things aside because there's some other thing that you're focusing on, you just won't notice it. You won't see it. So it's, kind of shifting focus, opening that awareness, and simply noticing what's around.
And that's the most exciting part. And then when you really start to, I really like to start trying to call things in, just to see. Do you remember there was a movie a long time ago? I suppose it had to have been late 80s. It was a movie called The Tempest. And one of the scenes, the guy takes off his glasses, and the Tempest, I think it's Shakespeare, right? Starts waving his glasses around. And he says, "Show me the magic. Show me the magic." And he conjures this storm that just, worst storm that they've ever experienced on that island. And I keep harkening back to that. And I'm like, that's really what it's like. It's really what goes on here.
Yes, and
not
now
in an evil sense, not in a bad sense, but the way he totally manifested that storm, right? I mean,
right.
It's kind of interesting.
And that's where you can see it, because that's where part of the chaos or perceived chaos stems from, is because there is not as much distortion and delay in the frequencies coming through. So what the frequency that someone's holding and putting out there, which is manifesting things, which is materializing things, since there's a whole lot of beings out there who are all very muddy with how they're holding their frequency and what they're putting out there, it's landing right in their lap because that's what they asked for. That's the frequency they're holding. That's the predominant frequency that they're emitting, and they're putting much emotion and power behind it. And so, all that they are saying, okay, great, here you go, here you go, here you go. And the little them in the shirts going, why is all this happening?
Right.
Because we need to get, now's the time to become aware and to become responsible and build those muscles. I had a nudge, and we finally, Sheila and Lisa and I did a quantum playground earlier, and we we played the first rounds of quantum baseball, which
Oh
is
yeah.
a quantum playground muscle building game, and it worked out. It was quite fascinating. So one of the things that as we were doing the different innings, I was nudged as what we're going to do is put up some flyers and invite others who'd like to come in and play in our game. We'd love to have it, just like you put up a notice on a the laundry board or at the general store or something. Hey,
Right.
down at the lot at 4:00 in the afternoon, we're going to have a practice game, and anybody wants to come and play, come on down. So, but this is the kind of thing of picking up those tools and noticing, just like you were talking about the tones coming in, and then you
Right.
paid attention to the correlation to things that were happening, and how one precipitated and followed the rest. And the games you play with your kids, and how you're shifting your energy and pulling those things in. All of this in little ways and large ways is very helpful for what is shifting and changing, and how we can really take ownership of being the creator beings that we are.
Well, I find it fascinating that you can really then start to to pinpoint the dots that are connecting with certain things that you voice. I find that voicing is the most powerful way to manifest, and they give you the clues all over the place.
Right.
And God said, it's frequency, it's language,
Right.
I made you as creator beings in my image. Okay, I got it. Okay, we're good. Right. But you start things over and over again.
Yeah, you give voice to something, the resonance of it, the frequency of it, the toning of it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful.
And then when one particular thing that I think I'm personally responsible for, and this is going to sound absolutely crazy, but so when the whole thing with Kim Jong-un, well, I just found it interesting that Trump just recently said you have to be 50.
Well, you got, hold on.
Okay.
You got fuzzy again.
Sorry. I can't go to that corner of the house. There's something over there currently interfering with frequency. But Trump said that it's been 15 months since there was a detonation of a nuclear weapon. Right? It was about that time ago that I really prayed and voiced that nuclear weapons just don't work anymore. They just don't work. All the things are there, all the parts are functioning, but they just don't work anymore. They just don't.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy, but I don't think they work anymore, BZ.
Well, that's that frequency. So you're holding the frequency, and it's a living, one way to describe it would be it's a living, breathing, demonstrable frequency that more and more and more and more beings are playing in and expanding and pulling that out into materialized form. And so we're seeing the results of it.
Isn't that fun?
Yes. Quantum is absolutely fun and fantastical and cosmically.
And I know that I just know that we're going to see the biggest change here, and it's coming. And I'm getting the frequencies that are coming in, and I'm seeing more things done each and every day, and that's the universe.
Yeah. Well, the change is here, and we're now seeing it pulled into the physical, materialized, touchable, tangible reality.
What a fun game.
Yep. Cool. Well, I'm so glad that you emailed about noodling and we got to play directly noodling. And
Yeah,
and I hope you
yeah.
will, you'll see one of our flyers and come to the local quantum baseball game.
I do want to. Yes, I want to.
So it should be fun. Very
Well,
cool. Well, it's
and one
great
thing that
to
we
talk
never
to you.
got to. Yes, I appreciate you, Colleen. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah.
One thing that we will need to speak about at some point is how I got uh, about about my quantum invention, frankly, and that's one thing that we need to
Yeah.
touch on.
Well,
Okay.
it's obvious that there's lots of things to play with, and we'll come back
Right.
and do it again.
Well, that's a fun one. Oh my gosh, that was like direct download next day. I mean,
Yeah.
whoa, okay, hold on a second. I mean, I've got just like much like Tesla, I've got this thing in blown up, proportions, everything how this thing is put together, and I mean, it was just like that. It was crazy.
Yeah. And so again, what you're sharing and all the different things we touched on in our conversation is that uh, being subject to and being connected with yourself and what's going on and what's nudging you and unfolding for you and noticing that um, helps you choose and navigate, as you walk through your day to day. And you're just having a ball doing it. And we all can do it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. And my cosmic self, does still have a sense of humor, and frankly, I do feel like I'm bilocating at some points, and I'll hear him laughing,
Yep.
and which I find is incredible.
Yeah.
I just find the whole ball of wax to be simply amazingly amusing.
Yes. It's very cool. The cosmic irony and fun and humor is just delicious.
Right.
Yep.
And
Cool.
frankly, that's what gets you through.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, you hang on a second. Thanks everybody for hanging out in this energetic envelope, and sign up in the comment section and let us know what you thought and what you're experiencing, what you're noticing, what you're playing with, and maybe come on round to the local quantum baseball game too. Much love.